right-hand corner it says Knights Templars of Malta and an address for them in London. And he opened it, and inside was a one-paragraph short letter that said, on more blue parchment with the silver crest on the top of the page, the crest was the Knights Templars of Malta, and the letter was a short letter, says, "I believe we have interests in common. Would you please give us a call before you leave?" And was signed Mark Nathan, Secretary General of the Knights Templars of Malta. So he called me and told me about the letter, read it to me, and he said, "If you'll meet me at Picacho, I'll show it to you." So I drove up to Picacho, and he drove down to Picacho, and we looked at the letter, and we discussed it, and he says, "Why do we need them? What do we have in common with them?" I said, "We don't need them. We don't want them. Forget the letter." So we forgot it. We continued with our plans. 2 weeks later, he got another letter in the mail. This one had a gold crest in the corner, and it said House of Commons and an address in London. On the inside was the same message saying you didn't respond to the previous message, and we think it's very urgent that you get in touch with us immediately, or if it's too late, contact us when you arrive in London, and left a telephone number. First one had a telephone number in it too. We decided not to respond to that one also, because we don't need any help. We don't want any interference. We don't know what the House of Commons would be doing. And it's also, that letter was signed Mark Nathan, Secretary something, Secretary before the rod is for the House of Lords. There's a special General Secretary, I think it is. Can you help me, Ken? What's the Secretary, the head Secretary for the House of Commons? Secretary General? Anyway, Mark Nathan again. Same name, same signature, same content, and he wants us to get in touch with him. Well, we decided to ignore that one too, and a few days later we went to Los Angeles, got on the Laker airliner. As I said, there's no schedule. Flew to London. There was no way anybody could know which airliner we were on unless they were with us. We got off at Heathrow Airport and got our baggage and walked down to the subway and caught the next subway out to London. And the subways leave every 5 minutes, so we could have been on any subway. And we got into Victoria Station downtown, London, and walked up the stairs to get a taxi to, we had located a walk-up rooms out of London on $10 a day by Fromer, and made a call and had a reservation in a house owned by an old artillery gunner, retired, and he had one of these little row houses, spiral stairs like that, 4 stories high, and he was holding a room for us. And we called him when we got to the station, to the airport, told him we were in town and we'd be there soon. So we come up the stairs at Victoria Station to catch a taxi, and there's a big black taxi driver. Not a lot of black taxi drivers in London, but there was this big guy. He was a big, tall, heavy-shouldered guy. And at Victoria Station, all the taxis line up outside. You have to take the head taxi, and then they move up that way. So here's this guy inside the terminal. He came up to Lee Elders, tapped him on the shoulder, and said, "You Mr. Elders?" He said, "Yes. Who are you?" And the man says, "I've got your taxi out here." And he led us out and around this other screaming taxi drivers to another taxi parked on a side street behind the building. And we were thinking, gee, what kind of a taxi is this? He's not in line. Who are they? And he opened the doors, and we got in, and I started to tell him, we want to go down to Kensington. We've got a reservation down here. He says, "I know." Put the car in gear and started driving, and he drove around some streets and pulled up on the side of the big square in London. At a place called Hyde Park. The Grosvenor House on the south side of Hyde Park. He pulled up there. There's only one place for a taxi to park, and he parked in that spot, got out, motioned for us to get out, and he locked the taxi. And now, the doorman didn't say anything about this. There's a uniformed doorman there also, and he motioned for us to come in the building. We went in with him. There was some other people sitting there in the lobby, and we said, "What about the baggage?" He said, "Don't worry about it. They'll watch it." And we was really worried now. So he takes us to the elevator. He says, "The boss wants to meet you." Oh, I think the boss is a taxi company. What's he doing in a hotel like this? You know, this hotel, the Grosvenor House Hotel, the Grosvenor House Hotel is a hotel that movie stars live in. Very expensive apartments. So he takes us up to the 5th floor in the elevator. We get out and we go down a corridor to about the 3rd door on the left. and he knocked a little code knock, like, and the door opened, and a round face with glasses looked out. They said something we didn't hear, and the door opened further. They slid a chain, the door opened further, and we're in something like a wet bar. There was just a small hot plate stove. There was a refrigerator. There was a sink, and not much in there, and a door at the end of it. And he went to the door and opened it, said something, and then motioned for us to come and go through the door. So we walked through, and beyond the door was a big living room, and it had a 4-cushion sofa on one side here to the right as you went in the door, with a big heavy oak coffee table in front, and a 3-cushion sofa here with another coffee table in front. And he was sitting across in the corner. These were all facing big picture windows, 8 feet by 10 foot picture windows. The whole wall was glass, and his chair was sitting in the corner. It was one of those big black leather chairs with soft arms and round back. And this chair was in the corner, and on each side was a table, matching tables. One table had a red telephone on it, and the other one had a white telephone on it. So he sits down. He motioned for us to sit down, and I did. And Lee and Britt sat over on the other 3-cushion sofa. And I had just sat down, and he was starting to sit down when the white telephone rang 10 short rings. Now, we had learned up to this time that the way the signal used by the plate is to tell Meier that he wasn't imagining what he was getting telepathically, was to ring his telephone 10 short rings. Now, if you don't know it, telephones, mechanical telephones like that, cannot ring 10 short rings. They have only 6 lobes on the ringer cams. You can only get combinations of rings of 6 rings, longs or shorts, of 6 rings. So Lee's been working with us all the time, and we asked Billy when we heard it in his house one time what that meant, and he said, "Oh, that's their signaling, letting me know what I'm thinking is them and not my own imagination." So when he had any doubt, Billy's telephone would ring 10 short rings. That would confirm that the telepathic communication he was getting was legitimate and real. So now we're in this guy's office, and he hasn't introduced himself yet. He's just about to say something when the phone rang, picked up the phone and answered, "Hello, hello, hello," nobody on the line. He said, "Just a minute." Then he dialed the operator. He said, "Did you ring?" She said, "No." He says, "Could anybody have called in from outside?" "Not without going through the switchboard." "Could anybody call this room from any place else in the house?" She said, "Not your room." And he put it down, and he was starting to say, "Wow, that's really strange." And then he introduced himself. He says, "I'm Mark Nathan, the guy that signed the letters." Then the red telephone rang, 10 short rings. This time he picked it up, and the first time when we heard the rings, I looked at Lee, and he looked at me, and we raised our eyebrows. He didn't see that. The second time it rang 10 short rings on the red phone. He grabbed it quick and says, "Hello?" Nobody on that line either. So he says, "Now this is a secure line. This is an intelligence line, very secure." He said it's monitored 24 hours a day, round the clock, 7 days a week, all the time. It has to go through an operator. He says this is not a mechanical connection, and all connections are supervised and recorded. So the operator says, "No, you didn't get any call." He says, "Could anybody else have called in on this line?" "No way." It goes right through here. He says, "And no lights on your switchboard?" Nobody called. Then he put the phone down. We told him what the 10 short rings meant. And then he explained that he was the case officer for the London district. The case officer is the highest ranking CIA man in that district. And he was the supervisor of all of this. And he told us that he said he knew where we were going. He said, I hoped you would answer the letters, but he said, I really didn't expect you to either. He said, but I'm going to ask you if you'll cooperate with us. Would you watch for some certain things if we ask you? We said, what do you want to watch? And they said, well, we know where you're going. You're going back into Switzerland to see Mr. Meier. And they said, the group around Mr. Meier is so small and tight and well known to each other, we haven't been able to get anybody into that group. And so you're going in somehow, and we would like you to look for certain things and then report to us on the way out. Would you be willing to do that? We thought of it a little bit and said, why not? We can't get out of here. We're thinking we can't get out of his office without it anyway. So we agreed to do it. But when we left the office, we never intended to contact him again. And